Hi everyone, my name is Kristen and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's event for the Ryerson School of Interior Design's 2021 year-end show Revisions Digital Design Festival. All of our sessions are offered with closed captioning in partnership with AI Media. So if you'd like to turn this on, all you have to do is click the live transcript button available at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you require ASL interpreter services or providers, all our providers will be interpreting the entire event. Please keep an eye out for Jamie, David, or Catherine's screen. They will be alternating throughout the event. Please also let us know if you are unable to see their screen in the chat function below, and our team will be able to help you. We have been hosting many events over the past 4 days, and recordings will be made available for the majority of events to watch on your own time. We encourage you to visit our website, yesrsid.com, to learn more, and most importantly, to check out our showcase highlighting student work from this past academic year. We have been launching new projects daily, so check it out. All projects will be viewable for the entirety of the month of May. Today, we are launching first-year projects. We want to begin this event by honoring that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which Ryerson University is located. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat since time immemorial. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. Settlers have not upheld this treaty, and Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island continue to resist settler colonial genocide at present day. Settlers, our responsibility is to honor the Dish with One Spoon Treaty and seek out ways in which we can act as accomplices in the resistance of settler colonial genocide. We want to close this opening with a call to action. Restoring relationships with Indigenous peoples in Canada is a significant key to reconciliation. We must be educated on the truth of attempted assimilation over the past 150 years, as it has resulted in devastating consequences that have left many First Nation communities in a place with many social challenges. Reconciliation Canada is an organization that delivers a series of reconciliation initiatives to pave a new way forward. Every person has an important role to play in reconciliation. There are many programs that Reconciliation Canada offers for you to take part in, such as volunteering, workshops, and reconciliation-based leadership training. Reconciliation begins with oneself and then extends into our families, relationships, workplaces, and eventually our communities. We have provided the link to their site in the chat box. We encourage you to participate and spread engagement to your community regarding restoring relationships with Indigenous peoples. Next, I would like to give a statement in regards to anti-racism from the Canadian Human Rights Commission. Racist comments and racist acts, no matter how subtle, can no longer be ignored or tolerated in Canada. We must make an effort to be actively anti-racist, to call out inequality, and to challenge prejudice and bigotry, even when it does not affect us. Even the most subtle forms of racism contribute to the conditions that permit overt racism and violence to occur. Now is the time for all Canadians, but especially non-racialized Canadians, to listen, learn, and reflect on how white privilege and systemic racism contribute to injustice and inequality in this country. We need to look inwards and have the courage to challenge our biases, fears, assumptions, and privilege. We need the courage to have difficult and uncomfortable conversations and to take action. We also want to recognize that if this is the first time you're hearing a land acknowledgement or anti-racism statement and it doesn't mean anything to you just yet, that's okay. Us saying these pieces are really just the first step. We encourage you to do your own research and reflection and discover what these acknowledgements and statements might mean to you. And lastly, Revision aims to promote local businesses and bring awareness to our community charities. Today, we are featuring 2 local businesses and 1 charity. One of today's local business features is Cherry Gardens. Born from a need for high-quality basics, the brand combines a minimal aesthetic with an athleisure feel. Designed with comfort in mind, first and foremost, everything is made in Canada, working with local vendors and creatives here in Toronto and across the country. Our second feature is Mumgri, handcrafted, ethically sourced, naturally nutritious, and beautifully designed to share with your friends and family. They prioritize the dietary needs of mums throughout every stage of motherhood and beyond. And now we would like to give a shout out to the Archives, our charity feature for this event. Their mission is to collect LGBTQ2+ stories, bring them to life, and share them with the world. They serve as a resource for all those who strive for a future where LGBTQ2+ people are accepted, valued, and celebrated. We would love for all of you to check out our social media for more information on how you can give your support. We have linked our community support page into the Zoom chat, so please do check it out. Before we get started, I'd like to share a few Zoom housekeeping tips so we are mindful of security concerns while using this platform. If there are any major disruptions that interrupt the host's ability to keep control of the Zoom platform, we will be asking everyone to log off immediately. We encourage respectful dialogue in the chat function of Zoom at all times, and we absolutely encourage you to ask as many questions as you'd like during today's session. To do this, you're going to be using the Q&A pod located at the bottom of your screen. You may rearrange your screen in any way that works best for you, and please note that rearranging your screen does not affect the way that others are viewing this presentation. Now I will be passing things off to Linda Zhang, who is a member of Ryerson School of Interior Design's faculty. She will be introducing our panelists and guiding discussions from here on out. To introduce, Linda Zhang is an assistant professor at Ryerson's SID and a principal architect at Studio Pararaum, based in Toronto and Zurich. Her design research explores memory, cultural heritage, and identity as they are indexically embodied through emergent technology, matter, and material processes. Linda, you can now take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm just going to share screen quickly. All right. So thank you so much, Kristen, for that introduction. As already introduced, my name is Linda Zhang. I'm an assistant professor at Ryerson. I also lead a fully female-led studio called Studio Pararealm. I'm so honored today to be a part of this panel, to moderate, and also have the honor of introducing our guest panelists for this Women Entrepreneurship Table Talk. So first, I would like to welcome Dej Hamilton from Dej Design. Dej Hamilton is a furniture maker / designer based in Toronto. She first started woodworking in the 6th grade and grew up to notice that there weren't many people in this field who looked like her. She realized that the huge lack of awareness when it came to woodworking and furniture making in relationship to the Black community, especially women who make furniture as a career. Her goal is to continue to inspire and educate and shine a light on women of color in woodworking, but also be the representation she wished she had when she was younger. Welcome. And next we have Fan Zhang from AADE, which stands for Awesome Designs. So Fan Zhang founded her practice AADE in 2015. She graduated from the University of Toronto with a bachelor's in applied science and engineering and a master's in architecture. Before starting AADE, Fan worked in numerous architecture offices, including HWKN in New York, Bjarke Ingels Group in Copenhagen, MAD in Beijing, and B&H in Toronto. Her experience working and living in different countries and cultures, through this, Fan has developed a great passion for the cross-discipline of vernacular architecture and modern social communities. Welcome. And the next set of panelists who will be joining us are Lucia Soto and Andrea Flores from Comité de Proyectos. They are an interior and furniture design studio founded in 2014 in Mexico City. Their work is very influenced by their culture. The big spectrum of great craftsmanship is one of the values they appreciate the most in Mexico. They think that design is a cultural conduct that has the power to generate change from the individuals to the collective sphere. Welcome. And next we have joining us Kimberly Green from Maison Naibu. Maison Naibu Inc. is a fully female-owned interior design firm providing design and consulting services for interior spaces. With over 19 years of combined experience, they have designed spaces for workplace, retail, residential, and commercial. They recognize the women that came before them in business, but also to their households who led the path and showed them the way. Maison Naibu strives to create and recognize gender equality and create an inclusive work environment with their clients and their partners. Welcome. And lastly, I would like to introduce Corinne Huard from Hoven Huard. Corinne Huard is the co-founder of Hoven Huard Design Studio in 2017. After 14 years of spearheading business development at Yabu Pulschelberg, a leap of faith culminated in an inspiring all-female team of energetic and strategic design professionals. The design team evolved into a collective better aligned with their core philosophies. Based on referrals and loyal clients, Hoven Huard has developed an international reputation for sustainable and engaging spaces. The studio continuously evolves by collaborating with prominent global innovators and leaders in their field. Thank you all so much for joining today. I'm so excited to be in dialogue with all of you. I certainly, my younger self is envious of this panel and wish I could have attended, but I'm also just so happy to attend today. So to get us started, I'll just actually open with a question, and it's one that I think I wish that I was asked earlier in my career as well. So the first question, and I'll put this in the chat as well for the audience if you want to refer back, is when you were just starting out your practice, who were your mentors and who specifically were your women mentors?
I'll go with that question. So my mentors, I would say, was my first shop teacher, Mr. Zupan, and my second shop teacher, Mr. Collins. I actually didn't have any women mentors. When I went off to college to study furniture making and design, the women mentors that I thought I would have They weren't the nicest to me. They didn't actually think that I was going to make it in this field. But shout out to Mr. Collins, who kept telling me to push and keep going. But yeah, it was cool. They're two awesome dudes. And I wouldn't change having them over women.
I can go next. Yeah, okay, great. Hi, I'm Corinne. Much like Dej, my mentors were men at the sort of beginning of my career in interior design. One of them was Glenn Pushelberg, clearly from my past experience, and I worked directly with Glenn for 14 years, and I pretty much learned everything there is to know about this business through him. But also I was very fortunate to meet the director of business development at Champalimaud. At the time he was at HBA. His name is Thomas Johnson. And I always say that Thomas is one of the original road warriors. He's the one that showed me the ropes of traveling the world, along with Glenn, obviously. But Thomas has all these tricks and solutions and formulas that he always tells me. He's Mr. Fact. So he's always like texting me one fact over another. And it's really helped me shape conversations and navigate the world of design through their expertise. Now, once I got into the realm and sort of discovered this vast world of interior design, I've met some really, really inspirational women like Anda Andre, Bonnie Brooks, who was formerly at HBC, and even one of my closest friends, Sherry Stinson, who had a stint on TV, and she's a designer that I met at Yabba Pushelberg. And I always say Sherry gets more done between the hours of 5 and 7 a.m. than most people get done in a month. So she's a real ball buster, and I love her for it.
Maybe I can go next. I was lucky enough to have a female mentor when I started. Some of you probably know that in order to become an architect, you have to go through the IAP program. And as part of that program, one of the requirements is to have a mentor to help you through the internship period. So when I was looking for a mentor to fulfill that requirement for the IAP program, I specifically looked for a female mentor because I understand that in the field of architecture, a much higher percentage of architects are males. So I think the set of challenges to go through this field would be different for female architects. And I really wanted to have a mentor who were ahead of me, who went through a lot of these hurdles and maybe issues or challenges in life. So I ended up asking Kira Clarkson to be my mentor through a coworker that I worked with. Kira is a very strong female. She's an architect. She has her own office in Toronto. And very interestingly, she also worked in New York and other places in the world before she came back to Toronto to settle down and have her own office. So I saw the similarity between what she did and what I really want to do for my future at that time. That's why I went to her, and I just want to say that she provided so much help. And to this day, I'm still very thankful that I made that decision and I followed her steps.
We also discussed about this. We had women or men mentors. We had both men mentors as well. Here in Mexico City, also design and architecture worlds are mainly male. No, so I think it was also great. We learned a lot about with them actually, no, and thanks to them. But I think the empathical part and the sensitive part was not something that we learned about with them. It was more the technical and theoretical aspects.
Yeah, like the process of design and the structure of leading a project from zero to finish, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. And well, after that, we made our own. No, after that base,
yeah,
we made
our own style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my mentor was my father. He's also an industrial designer. So we both are industrial designers. We're not architects. And yeah, he was my mentor. He's still my mentor. But yeah, like Andrea said, it was very cool when we were talking about this, because when I studied, I am a few years younger than Andrea. And when I studied, most of the people on the career, they were girls. And when she studied, they were mostly men. So it was like a few years and it changed like radically. So yeah.
And I think I'm similar to Dej and Corinne, where I didn't really have anyone specific as a mentor, but there's been, I mean, a lot of men mentors for sure, being in the technical and construction design industry. But I was shocked at how many female mentors there actually were. Coming into the industry, I came into residential, and I came into an architectural firm, which was very male-based. And then when I transitioned into corporate interiors, that's when I got into more of the female mentors. And it was just very inspiring, like just being around senior designers that were teaching me things back in the day. And it was just, they to me just felt so empowering and sort of gave me the, I guess the power, the inner power to do what I wanted to do and know that I could design well. And I had this group of females behind me, right? And so in the industry, there was many women that I counted on and that I was inspired by, but also in my family as well. So my parents have always been encouraging, but on the female side, my mother and my sister were always there in terms of female empowerment. Like, if you want to do something, you can do it. What do you mean you can't do it? If you want to do it, go ahead. I mean, you have everything at your fingertips. So industry-wise and family-wise, it's been great for me in terms of support. So
I think it's so fascinating to hear, across the whole panel, for myself, our mentors, there's how many of our mentors have actually been male, because that actually is who have been the people who have either we've worked for or have been our teachers during this time. There just wasn't maybe more representation yet. And it's also, I think, really amazing to think about, at least for me, I can say for, my male mentors who have been incredible supports and really, uplifted me through this time, like how many allies we have, across genders. And I think one of the things I think too is, thinking about ourselves now and who we are mentoring, and also like not only mentoring other women, but also like who else needs mentorship, that maybe there are other marginalized communities that are young designers now, that we also, can uplift, even if we don't share the same experience with them, in ways that we can, support them. I think it's amazing to hear from Fan, your kind of very early on consciousness around seeking out a female mentor for even during your licensure. I was certainly myself not that aware when I was going through licensure. For all of everyone who signed up on all of my hours when I was working as an architect were all male. And so that actually leads me into my next question. I think we probably all came to some of these realizations at different stages. For me, it was, in earlier stages in my career, there's a lot of female junior designers. So I felt like I had colleagues and, co-conspirators. And it was only as I started moving up that I felt that there was some isolation. And then I only really later on started seeking out female mentorship, because there was nobody around me anymore who looked like me. And so the next question is, was gender something you were aware of when you first started this career path, or something you became more aware of over time? And how has that affected your practice and, opportunities and growth in your own entrepreneurship? Maybe we'll start with Kimberly this time, who finished last time.
In terms of gender, I think I'll speak on gender equality. That's something in terms of men versus women in the workplace. I didn't realize the gap between the two until more recently. And even when I started the business, I think it's really important to be proud of being a woman in in business as an owner, and to encourage younger people as well, to help that male-female gender gap, and try to make it more equal. As we all know, men have been, I think, definitely more prominent in being business owners. And so I just think that women should be proud, empowered, and know that they can do it. They have the same amount of skills as a man does. I mean, in terms of what you're studying or what you're interested in, the field that you're in, you can definitely do it. And as a business owner, in terms of gender equality in the workplace, we're very aware of that. And I mean, discrimination is not a thing at our company. It's about the skill, and it's about the culture, and it's about the people that we want at our firm and in our community to be passionate about design and to be excited about what they're doing. I mean, we don't see, in terms of inequality, that's not something that we see in terms of something we focus on in a negative way. I mean, we just want people to be excited, passionate, and sort of live for that world, that amazing design world that we all live in. So.
Maybe I can go next. At first, when I started off, I was the same with Linda. I didn't realize there's any difference between the genders because at the lower level, when, for example, this is your first job, or when you're doing internship, there's a lot of other girls out there, right, doing the same thing as you are. In your team, there's probably, 2 girls, 2 boys. But then, I realized looking up at maybe the hierarchy of the office and realize how come there's a lot of, female interns, but if you count the partners in an office, if you actually count all these, awards that are given out to architects annually, worldwide, or even designers, right? There's only a very few people that are actually female. So there's this gap that I kind of realized between what's around me and like what I see in the future, kind of, right? My goal, where I want to be in the future. And that kind of discrepancy alerted me. And maybe that led me into wanting to have a female mentor early on, because I want to figure out, like, this question has always bugged me. Why is there a difference there? So I wanted to figure out, how these successful female architects built the way, paved their way, or what kind of things they went through in order to get there. So I've always felt there's a difference, and I think my experience is not as beautiful as what Kimberly described. I think that's the ideal situation, right? This is where, all the offices want to be at. This is where our society want to be at. But I looked at things from more of a reality point of view. What I have experienced and what I have saw and what I continue to see today is a bit far from that reality.
Yeah, I can agree with that too. Going to school, there were 2 other women who were also Black in my class as a furniture maker and designer, and the both of them got injured. And the teacher passed me, and he's always making these snarky remarks, and he said, 2 down, 1 to go. And I knew that like this wasn't going to be just like a happy journey to becoming a furniture maker and designer. But when I went off into the work field, my very first job with a designer who owned his own business, it wasn't so much gender for me as it was ageism. They did not respect my ideas. They didn't respect anything that I had to say because of my age. And it was very tough. I had to leave because I couldn't deal with it anymore. But to see now that there are so many young female designers, it's inspiring me to just keep going, because that's what I wish I had back then. And like to see like a whole female panel right now, like being able to talk about our journeys and inspire more people to continue in this field. Like, it's amazing.
I think for my own personal experience, I have to say that just because of the nature of the industry that we're in, there was a lot of definitely female presence in the studios that I worked in. It was always very inspirational. What does strike a note with me, and I think that that's something that we need to figure out as we all evolve as a society, but the women in leadership roles had to practice in a very masculine way, if that makes any sense. And so, you had all these amazing women who were so powerful and talented and thoughtful, but they had to practice in this more masculine mentality, being a bit more, I don't want to say ruthless, but, having to be very draconian in the manner that they were running either their teams. If you looked at the setting of their personal lives, if they were indeed mothers, many opted not to have families because it was very difficult to sort of juggle that role and professionally and at home, or the ones that were not, could not be as involved in the family life as you would typically sort of picture a woman being. And so that was really a struggle for them, and I'd have a lot of conversations because women tend to share more, which is really great as well. So you can have these conversations sort of on the sidebars. But that was something that I think that we need to really work on. We're very fortunate here in Canada because there's a lot of systems that do allow us to be able to be more involved that way. But it was something that I felt was sort of disappointing that they had to make that choice. And that's actually, I think I'm jumping ahead here, Linda, so forgive me, but it's also what led me into sort of my next career direction. Was it is a very, very difficult thing to balance and to juggle when you do have a personal life and a professional life that you sort of want to be able to manage at the same time. And that's, sort of what led me to this next direction, to be able to have more control over my life and sort of my everyday work life. But that is something that I noticed about women in the industry at the time. They were female and they were doing amazing things, but they really had to approach it in a more masculine way, it seemed to me anyway, that maybe was not necessarily how they would have done it if they felt they had more choice.
Yeah, we totally agree with what Corinne has just said. I have like a personal story to tell. When I was very young, I used to go to family reunions, and all of my uncles and my dad, they are all industrial designers. So I always looked up at them, like that was the main thing to do, like to be like them. So I totally looked up to them and I wanted to be like them. And that kind of negar,
I don't know,
I don't know, like on seeing yourself in order to be like the main thing. I don't know, like I wanted to be like them. So you never question yourself in order to do that. I mean, it's like we have been sold that the cool way to be in the world is to be like men, like to do things like men do. So I mean, when I was growing up, I naturally started doing things like they do. And I started like questioning myself when I was like not young, when I was like, I don't know, like 5 years ago, when you started looking at what am I doing, where am I going? We as Comité de Proyectos, we always value like the personal time. We always value being with ourselves, like communication. So these kind of female skills or female values are being implemented in our life and in our way of working, and it's kind of new in our lives.
Yeah, it's so different as when we started together to work in a male company, design company, that these values were not so important, no? Like to be really, really communicative and be sincere with what you're feeling, and I don't know, like all these female things, no? So, I mean, and they are so important for us now, no? We can't imagine Comité de Proyectos without those values now, no? So it's been really enlightening and really, I don't know, we've been aprendiendo, like learning a lot, no, from ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that it's interesting because I feel like a lot of women have been conditioned to the way that, let's say, the male-dominated world has been for so many years, that you sort of get into this just way of going about your day, your work day, not necessarily realizing how it's being run, and that you could have you could provide an opinion, but it might be shut down. I think that's how a lot of women have gone through their careers, not everybody. But I think it's great to see now that it's going into a positive direction with a lot of women in business. I think it's just us conditioning ourselves to sort of get out of that old way of doing things in business and go into this new part.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Oh
Linda.
no, go ahead, please.
I'm gonna add to this. So, you know, like not to necessarily stay focused on the way that men run things or anything like that, but I think there was a status quo that was established at some point in sort of the professional world, that things were just done just so. You learned it in school. You had practice runs where you had, practice interviews or practice, I don't know, seminars and sessions and meetings where everybody pretends like they're in an office setting. And you're going by these rules that somebody told you at some point. And I think, well, this happens in the world for many reasons, but, and especially now that we're deconstructing everything, is that, people just kind of stood up and said, well, why not? Like, why can't I talk about my family life? Why can't I talk about feelings or emotions or whatever is going on in a work-life setting or a workplace setting, especially in this line of business, because we spend so many intense hours together from the time that you're actually getting educated to when you're entering into the professional world. We know that this is a deadline driven industry. Like, there's going to be all-nighters. There's going to be really, really sort of high temperature moments. And why do we feel the need to go through life with all these rules and regulations as to how we can communicate with each other or what kind of information we should be sharing? And so that's, I think, being deconstructed. Sometimes there could be, you can apply a more sort of masculine thinking to it or not. But either way, I think what my point is that as women, we're more inclined to really support and to emotionally and feelings are not a dirty word, and we can actually, and that helps people sort of be more comfortable and happy in their environment. And that's something that we're promoting more and more and more. Mental health is a huge issue, right? And so I think that we're more in tune with that sort of level of sharing and support. And I think it's changing, which is a really great thing. And so you'll see a lot of this, in the wave of the future, of course, with more women in the workplace as well, that will help influence a more supportive and gentler mindset in sort of the professional communities.
I think like success, it's a very male word, sorry, like it's like how to be successful in life. We think about the meaning of the word as, I don't know, I look at it and it's like a male thing, no? And it's like we're changing the meaning of the word success, sorry, no? And it's so different as it was before, no? For when design and architect was mainly, or well, it's still male, but I think it was more, no, before. So yeah, we've been changing a lot of those meanings.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to use the word flourishing instead. I feel like we're all flourishing in this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends on your definition. And so, who is setting that stage, who's setting those expectations, it's same things like just in your everyday management of your business. When you set these goals, like, why are you setting these goals? Why are you deciding that your goal this year is going to be, make this much amount of money and doesn't matter how you get to it, kind of thing. I think we're re-envisioning sort of what is measurable success. And it's not necessarily just a bottom line. It's not a spreadsheet with a number that arbitrarily somebody just came up with and told everybody go out there and kill yourself to get to that. Now success is, okay, what is your sort of the spirit of your business? What is your community like? Are people happy? Are they happy where they're working? Are you providing sort of a more sustainable work-life balance, as we all call it that? But I think in today's day and age, that's going to be a real measure of success. You know, it's not going to be just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's actually going to be, what's your corporate culture like? And then from that, you'll see that your level of success that's measurable in a piece of paper will probably match, and just with a happier sort of workforce.
I think our conversation also now is transitioning also to one of our next questions. Just before that, though, I did just want to say a really warm thank you. You all just shared very personal stories in this room, and like I can feel you here as you're sharing them, and I really appreciate that, and I'm sure that our audience does as well. Our kind of next theme to talk about is actually obstacles. You know, what were your biggest obstacles in becoming or being a women entrepreneur? And it ties into also one of the audience Q&A from an attendee who writes, a common obstacle, and we've touched on this already, a common obstacle among women in leadership positions is the misconstruction of a strong, authoritative woman as bossy. In what ways have you combated this issue in your own role as design leaders? And so I think we touched upon this a little bit in terms of even our own internalization of how we need to act or be in positions of power, but even just trying to make the same decisions as women and not men, and how that is then received in a team, I think are also, you know, are difficult questions. And if any of you have found any tips or even just word phrases that you find useful. I think for me, part of this is also, I didn't want to have to be authoritative in a sort of normative way that is also established through gender normativity. And part of that was really difficult when I was working for somebody else. And as you're moving up through ranks with other colleagues, it is often men who are being promoted and men who are being credited often for your work as well. And I think for me, part of wanting to start to found Pararam, we're two women of color, is that we also wanted more agency and control over our own space. I think one of the things I always think about is I have full control over, you know, the parts of my life that are that I have agency over, and in those spaces I want to be true to myself in those and cultivate the world or the spaces I want to see. And in starting a practice, I get to expand that space and carve out more of that in the world. And in that space, I don't want to have to be authoritative in that traditional sense in order to have leadership. And so for me, that was, you know, a little bit of a way of how I was trying to negotiate for those. So I'm very curious to hear for each of you how you've kind of negotiated the kind of gender normativity, but then also the internalized sexism in how people respond to you in your positions of leadership.
I'll start. I always have lots to share. Okay, so going back to the question. So let's go with the first one, which was, you know, one of your biggest obstacles. And I think honestly, like in everything in life, I'm my own biggest obstacle. So, you know, always wondering, oh, should I be doing this? Should I? This big question about should I? And then at some point, life just finds a way of pushing you right into the traffic, and it's up to you to sort of navigate your way. So once I stopped over analyzing all the shoulds and, you know, measuring up again against this status quo that has been built to be unachievable by most, I just realized that I should just try regardless, you know what I mean? And what's the big deal? And so once I got past that fear of failure or that fear of looking foolish or trying to keep it together, It's funny how everything just kind of unfolded anyway. And when things didn't go exactly as I thought that they would, sometimes I was pleasantly surprised by the, as they call, I don't know if it's a happy accident or whatever they call that in science, but I realized, oh, well, I'm learning from this. And then just that whole fear of failure kind of goes away when it's not necessarily failure, it's just an attempt. And so, and trying and staying positive with it. So it wasn't necessarily an issue. I think for me, the biggest challenge in juggling sort of traditional relationships and sort of what is attributed to male sort of characteristics. I've always been called a bossy broad, and I don't care. I kind of like it. I've been used to it. You know what I mean? And I have an all-female studio here, and everybody's bossy in their own right, and they have very staunch opinions. But what makes it beautiful is the fact that everybody's willing to listen to them and to talk to them through. And that's something that I do attribute to having an all-female studio because, and this is going to be controversial, but it's mostly like there's no egos when we're talking about it. People can have opinions, but we're also willing to listen to other people and to support them in that discussion. So from that point of view, I don't believe in anything negative about being bossy. You can be whatever you want to be as long as you're respectful and you're supporting each other.
I would tend to agree with you, Corinne, and just in terms of the risk factors involved in being an entrepreneur and just going out there and starting a business. For us, we kind of said, what do we need to start a business? What are the risk factors? What are the things that we need? And we haven't really had any obstacles. It was just more in the mind of, can we do this? Do we want to do this? How passionate are we about this? And I think there may have been obstacles from the outside coming in of people saying, oh, why are you leaving your 9-to-5 job? Or, in design, we all know it's not 9 to 5, but there's always that negative coming in, right? And you have to push that away if you're really passionate about it and you know that you want to go for it, because what Lisa and I, my partner, what we talked about when we opened the business is just don't doubt yourself. If there's a moment of doubt, find a way to flip that back positive, because it'll be easier and better for you to get to your goal. And so in terms of physical obstacles, nothing so far, but definitely the mental aspect of, should I do this? How do I do this? Who are my avenues and mentors and people that I can go to help me get to where I want to be? And that's kind of just like, it's a constant thing. It's a daily thing that you're always running into something and you just have to troubleshoot and find a way to do it.
Yeah, we totally agree with both of you. I think, yeah, the way I see it, and I think Andrea too, is that we are our own worst obstacles. Like not believing in yourself and not having that muscle of trust in your own intuition is the main obstacle. Like we have been having like a hard time learning how to say no to projects that we don't like, how to say no to forms that we don't like being treated, like not trusting that no that comes from inside is the first obstacle that I think we have been encountered with. And yeah, about the bossiness, I have been like very sensible with this issue because I really care about the reasons why people do the things. So I don't feel like being afraid of being judged is a good reason to do things. So I don't like having people in the office being afraid of me yelling at them so they do the work, right? So I want them to do the work because they care and they like and they have a compromise and they like what they do and they respect what they do. So it's like very it requires a lot more of time and talking to them and being sensitive to what they are living, what they are feeling, what they are needing. Yeah, because it's very personal. It's not like everyone is in the same position and they should do, I hate the shoulds, you know? So if one of the people in the studio is having a hard time because they have a disease in the family, so they have a need that is different from the other one. So we should be able to see that and to respect that and be able to adjust also our expectations of their ¿cómo se dice? Como su desempeño.
Yeah, their work, no?
Yeah, their work, how they develop, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess, yeah, for me, like my obstacle was definitely myself as well, and trying to deal with imposter syndrome and wondering if I actually belong here because I didn't see anyone like me. Like, can I do it? Was really where I was at the whole time. And then starting a business, oh God, like having to learn everything. Because I guess I'm really secluded. And so like I like to learn things on my own. And when I try to solicit help, it doesn't always work out. So I just tend to do everything myself. And finding the courage to continue to do that was definitely an obstacle as well. In terms of being, I guess, like a strong female in this field, I myself am not necessarily confrontational. I'm very calm, nonchalant, and I could not be that here. I found like a lot of people trying to negotiate. And one of my main things that I would always say, or my mom would tell me, is like, your price is your price. Like, don't change it for anyone. And telling people like, no, it's going to be this price, and them trying to haggle me down and trying to, stand my ground and like tell them like, no, like the price is the price. It is what it is. I'm not changing it. I guess that's kind of helped grow me as a person, because I was never like that before I started this business. I was always a yes person. I didn't know how to say no as well, but I'm still learning, and just trying to be the best me in here.
I was just reading the questions on Q&A, and I saw there's a comment about being a mother and balancing career and business. I think that is probably one of the biggest obstacles that I'm facing, or I have been facing ever since I started my own practice. Because realistically speaking, to digress a little bit, I was watching this stand-up talk show from Ali Wong. She's a Asian comedian from the States, and she was just talking about this just today. I mean, from the show I was watching today, and she was saying that women talk about balance between your personal life and your business life, and men just don't do that because they don't balance. So I think this is a challenge that a lot of women are facing, and it's certainly a challenge I have been questioning myself for a long time. Do I want to have a family? What's going to happen if I have like 3 kids running around? Would I still be able to focus on my projects, right? And, you know, if I'm hiring more employees, then I'm going to have to be responsible for them. If I'm going to be juggling between family and my office, then, my energy is going to be split. But then for a woman, I'm telling really honest truth, right? Our clock is ticking. So there's a certain time that you have to make decisions. And those are not really easy decisions to make. There's going to be sacrifices, no matter which option you choose. If you choose to have family, then you're going to have to make sacrifices on that. If you choose your career, I'm sorry, you're going to have to make sacrifices too. This is the reality I have been facing. And I think this is the biggest obstacle for me. When it comes to people calling me bossy, which I've been called a lot of times, honestly, I don't really care, because I think that's a positive thing that just shows I'm on top of things. I'm super organized. I know what has to be done, and I know how to get that done. So bossiness is never, a negative thing to me. And I think I would encourage other women to be strong and be confident and just don't care about these adjectives or tags that's been added to you.
I like that
I
you
think
touched
that's such a
on because I'm not a mother myself, so I can't relate 100%, but I know, and I've been around enough women to know how difficult it is to juggle a family. And I mean, my own mother, I don't know how she got home on time to have dinner on the table for me when I was a child. And now in a busier world, I feel like that's impossible. And so I think, Dej, to your point, a lot of women feel like they need to be the nurturer or kind of the one to get things done on their own. So we feel that we need to, we don't have support, or we have to do everything, or it's faster to do things if we just do it, right? And so as a mother, I could imagine everything in terms of cleaning and cooking and taking care of the kids. And then if you're a business owner or you're just working for a company, there's all of that added to your list of things to do, and it becomes overwhelming. And not to knock down the male side at all, but I just don't think that they think of that as much as a woman does. I mean, I think we're always thinking of that, and we're people pleasers, right? Like that's just in our nature. And so I think there's a lot of pressure.
Well, there definitely is a lot of pressure, and as a mother of 2 kids, I can tell you that it's always a juggling game. It's never going to be how you plan it to be. But at some point, you turn around and you just go, "Oh wow, I somehow managed to get it done." It wasn't, maybe per what your preconceived notions of what it was, but it was just as good. I think, like most entrepreneurs, if you sort of draw the correlation to that, is that, when you get really busy, it's like every phone call you make, you're when you're putting your attention on that phone call, you're not forgetting, but not necessarily putting attention on the 3 other phone calls or 3 other conversations you're supposed to be having. And that's sort of that juggling game that you have as an entrepreneur. When you have kids, it's the same thing. So, okay, great. Like right now I'm taking care of my kids and getting them organized for whatever activity that they have. That means that, I'm sort of falling behind on writing that proposal for a project that I want to do. And it's always going to be a juggling game. It's never going to be perfect. And it's just, as long as whatever choice you make, you always make sure that it's something that in retrospect you'll be proud of and comfortable with the decision that you made. And you can't go wrong if that's what you look back in hindsight and just go, yes, maybe I jeopardized something in my work life, but I will never regret not being at my daughter's 5th birthday party or whatever the case may be. And that's really where you have to draw your line. And of course, at some point, everybody, when you're an entrepreneur, you might be a type A personality, a bit OCD in my case. And so at some point, you also have to learn to let things go. And even if things aren't necessarily done the way that you want them to be, as long as the end result is the same, then who cares? It's learning to let go, I think, is sort of the biggest challenge when you're juggling all of these different things. So whether it's a fur baby or a real baby or whatever you've got going on, or if it's a relationship, it's making the right decisions in your heart and in your mind and spirit. And at the end of the day, you'll get to wherever your end goal is regardless. The road may be a bit different, but who cares?
I think those are some incredible insights just in terms of, staying true to yourself, regardless of how that may be received and, how that due to gender norms, what names you may be called for those things, but staying true to who you are, but then also at the same time reflecting on how much of who you are, who you want to be might have been shaped by external or societal factors of, people that we've looked up to, and knowing that who we are can also, when that is different from maybe who we've looked up to or what we've seen has been possible, that's okay too. So sort of empowering ourselves through that sense. So I see that we have just 2 more minutes. So I'm going to maybe jump to a last question. There's a few questions in the Q&A who are asking this, but it's actually a question specific to being BIPOC female designers. So we have a question from an attendee who's asking about best advice to give to a BIPOC female to start leading the design industry, as well as another attendee who's asking because she is a female Black designer and she's looking for any advice. So any advice pieces of wisdom maybe you would have given to your younger self as a BIPOC designer, or advice as a female mentor for younger female BIPOC designers?
My advice is just be yourself. You can't be anyone else but you. And if you go into a field trying to be like someone else or trying to embody someone else and how they design, you won't be a good designer. You have to be yourself. That is something that I wish I was told when I was in school. Being in a predominantly white college, I tried to be like them, tried to fit in because there was no one else like me. And I realized like that wasn't working out. I can't be them. I have to be myself. And once you are comfortable with being yourself and you go forth with that, like you will prosper like no other. You won't even understand where all these opportunities and all this success and flourishment is coming from because you just decided to be you. So that's my advice.
And for me, diversity is like the key for the future. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, it's so much better to have so many different backgrounds and cultures now, and to hear so many voices. I mean, it's so important now, no? So I don't know.
Yeah, for me, it's I think we should all question the things that have been said as the rules, you know, like I don't know, the way indigenous Mexican people see the world is so radically different from the Occidental point of view, and so radically different from other points of view. So I think we should not dar por sentado. Like,
it's so enriching. I mean, it enriches your view, and
yeah, I think we should question that. Yeah, like the views. It's not a main view that you have to adjust to that view. I think we should amplify the views and not adjust yourself to the main thing that you think is like predominant.
Correct.
I think we should question the predominant way of living life
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. Don't conform, but reform. That's what it is.
I really I thought that actually might be a really great place to end, because reform and revision is this year's theme also for the year-end show, and I think those are some really powerful thoughts to end on. I think being you know, women and having experienced marginalization in terms of gender, it actually allows us to see maybe where the center is because we're in the periphery. And for others, it's maybe more difficult to see that, but it's an inherent experience that we have, and that also intersects with many other forms of marginalization. And I think the powerful thing in that is, you know, what we've been talking about is like all of these things we're actually much more our uniqueness has been very clear to us this entire time everywhere we've gone, because there is often not someone who looks like us, or we often are not fitting into certain systems and how they're upholded. But it also makes us aware of that. And I think the important thing within that is also we all share different privileges as well. And, you know, obviously we're not in terms of gender, but in terms of like our own backgrounds, in terms of like orientation, like social economic, you know, sort of like ethnic backgrounds, all of these different things. And we also have some of those normativities that we also are part of and have inherited. And I think the really amazing thing about being women is that because we're so aware of our gender, we can also become more aware of ways in which we also participate in these other systems, in ways we might also already be centered in other systems, and the ways in which we can also support a sort of movement to declaring other peripheries, you know, as centers, and sort of, yeah, always supporting each other. So I wanted to thank everyone for sharing and the amazing discussion. There's a lot of comments in the chat as well of attendees sharing their gratitude. And we encourage you to all, to the audience as well, continue having these conversations outside of today's events. If any of the guests wants to share their social media or ways to keep following you in the chat, feel free. It's also linked on the year-end show website for attendees who want to keep track on all of the amazing things this panel of women is up to and going to get up to. And I'll just be handing things over now back to Kristen for our closing remarks.
Thank you, Linda. To end things off, we would also like to thank our guests. Thank you, Dej, Andrea, Lucia, Fan, Corinne, and Kimberly for contributing to a greatly inspiring conversation. I, as well as our audience, I'm sure, were very intrigued by your stories about your mentors, how not only gender, but other facets of intersectionality can influence the ways in which we navigate our practice, how we can flourish, the obstacles that stand in our way. We'd also like to thank Linda for such a compelling, respectful, and meaningful discussion for hosting this event. Thank you for sharing and opening up to us, especially with a predominantly female-dominated program. It is so important that we hear and see these voices in positions of leadership, and we are so lucky to have all of you to look up to and to learn from. Thank you for helping to pave the way for us. We have a long way to go, but hearing from those like you make us hopeful for the future of our industry. And a huge thank you to our ASL interpreters and to AI Media for your support in ensuring that all of our events today were accessible as well. We hope everyone enjoyed today's Women Entrepreneurship panel, our final event concluding our packed schedule today. We'd love for everyone to join us tomorrow for our closing remarks and awards ceremony as well. Please check out our website, yesrsid.com, to view our student projects and our Instagram at yesrsid to support our daily charities and local businesses as well. Thank you all again for coming and have a good rest of your day.